Hey everyone, welcome back. In this Postman tutorial, I'm going to talk about the HTTP status codes and why it is very important to understand the different type of HTTP status codes and how you can easily remember HTTP status code. So you don't need to basically by heart each and every status code. There is a clear categorization and then you can refer to the documentation of specific HTTP status code for the beginning. And as soon as you will start getting more used to the API testing, you will anyways start remembering those codes. So let's first understand what is HTTP status code. So for example, if we were going to the fake store and then trying to get the products, okay, so if I simply go ahead and send this particular request, all right, you will see that I have talked about this 200 OK, right? So 200 OK is the HTTP status code that conveys that this request that we have sent to this particular URL to the server has responded successfully the response. So it has received the request and then it has responded successfully, and that's what this status code is all about, right? Now say for example I go ahead and do something here. Okay, so for example here instead of get, let me say I just change it to post. Okay, and then click on send. Let's see what is the status code. The status code is 404 not found. Okay, now there are many different status code, HTTP status code that you will come across when you are doing API testing using post. Now the best way to see what exactly it means, just hover over and you will see that 404 not found has the description as well. The requested resource could not be found but may be available again in the future. Subsequent requests by the client are permissible. Okay, so this is what 404 status code is, and similar to 404, 200, there are many other status codes. So what all status code are there, the categorization, and how you are going to easily understand what exactly it means when there is a specific status code. Okay, so I'll go to the documentation, one of the documentation which is basically the status code. So it is deprecated, but status code is standard, you don't need to worry about. So this is the documentation from w3.org. Okay, let me collapse this message. There is a more recent version of this documentation, so you can go ahead and refer, but on a high level I just want to explain the core categorization of the status code. So basically 5 core categorization are available: 100, 200, 300, 400 and 500, right? So any HTTP status code will fall in any of these 5 different categorizations. So for example, any code that starts with 1 and then anything ahead of that, right? So 100, 101 or whatever. For example, 100, right? It is for what? It is informational. It is for information. It is nothing to do with the success error. It is only to get or provide more information for a particular request, right? So that's what any code, whether it's 100 is continue, 101 if it is returned, that means switching protocol. Then these are basically 2 of the informational, right? So anything with the 100 is, or anything with 100 or 1XX is informational. Any code that starts with 2 is successful, right? So 2, if it is 200, that is okay, success, right? Server received the request and send the response successfully, right? That's what 200 OK is. And you can get more details, you can go ahead and read more details, but you don't need everything upfront, right? Just understand the 5 categorization and you will be absolutely fine in learning these status code eventually. So 2XX is success messages. So 201 is created, 202 if it is coming, then it is accepted, 203 non-authoritative information, 204 no content, right? So all of these different categories are there with the code 2 starting with 2. Now what is 3? What is the code that is starting with 3? 3 is redirection, right? So anything with 3XX is redirection. All right. For example, 300 is multiple choices. Then 301 move permanently. If the URI or resource has moved to a different URI, then the message will come as 301. Then you have 302 found, right? So anything with 3XX is redirection. All right. Then we have 4XX. So anything like 400, 401 is what? It is client error. Okay, so anything with 4XX is client side error. For example, there is a request that you have not formatted correctly in Postman, right? So here you can see that this is 404 not found, right? So this is basically the error from the client itself. Okay, so that's what anything, for example, 400 is a bad request, 404 is not found. The server has not found anything matching the request URI, right? So most probably what happens is no indication is given whether the condition is temporary or permanent. The 410 status should be used if server knows those some internally configurable mechanism, right? So there is a lot of content there, but overall anything with 4xx, whether it's 400, 401, 2, right? For example, 402 is payment required, 403 is forbidden, right? 404 is not found, which is what we got in this particular case. But all of these are the client error. These errors are not the server error. Now the next is, the fifth one is 5xx, right? So anything with the 5. So you'll see all of these are 400, right? So 400 up to 17 are there, 15, 16, 17, right? You don't need to just go ahead and learn everything all at once, right? Just understand the basic, the core 5 level categorization there, right? Like the fifth one is 5xx. So 500 is internal server error. 501 is not implemented, right? 502 bad gateway. You would be getting these on the browser a lot of time, right? For 504 gateway timeout, 503 service unavailable, right? So these are very common server error, which will start with 5. Okay, and this is basically the core categorization of the HTTP status code. Make sure that you remember it. Very common interview question for the API testing and even general testing as well. It's very common that 5 core categorization of the HTTP status code, and that's what you will be dealing here within Postman. It will be either 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, right? It will be either starting with 1xx, 2xx, 3xx, 4xx, 5xx, right? And now you know, based on this categorization, that if it is 1xx or any message or any status code that is starting with 1, that is only for information. If it is starting with 2, right? So for example, 200, that is okay, right? Or anything 201 or whatever, that is the success response. 300, anything 3xx is redirection. Anything 4xx, right? Any message with 417, 415, whatever, right? If it starts with 4, it is a client error. If it starts with 5, 5xx, 500, 501, 2, it is server error, right? So these 5 basic core categorization, make sure you understand these 5, and rest all, you know that if it is starting with 5, okay, something related to the server. If it is 4, then where I need to look into, right? So that way you will be able to easily understand these status codes. And if you hover over the Postman, you will anyways get the description of what exactly that code talks about, and you will be able to easily figure out and debug any requests in future. So that's the basic of the HTTP status code. I wanted to cover it first before we move on to the authorization section of the Postman and then start working with the real API. So that's all for this video. I hope it was helpful. Thank you very much.